Thank you for coming this afternoon. My name is Sheriff Paul Babeu, and first I wanted to thank Chief Larry of the Fire Department. We were speaking yesterday about a different matter, and we got talking about the recent events with the sexual assault / abduction that was reported here in Oracle. And while we were talking, I kind of had this in mind, because we had 2 calls down at the Sheriff's Office specifically about this concern and, hey, what all is being done. And so I said to Chief Larry, I said, Larry, do you think that it would be a wise idea, maybe we could have an event, a meeting, a community meeting in Oracle, just to share some of the information, what we can within the limited parameters, because it's a criminal investigation. I said, do you think that would be helpful, just to try to, in an effort to calm some of the concerns and alleviate those? And he said, Sheriff, I think that'd be very wise to do. So, of course, my next question, do you think we could hold it at the fire department? So I want to thank and appreciate Larry, Chief, thank you for allowing us to meet in your fire department, and of course we all appreciate and value our firefighters and the good work you do in town. So thank you all. Wanted to point out some of the folks that I brought here today to talk to you about the events that occurred on the 15th of December and again on the 30th of December, just recently. There were 2 different events, circumstances that were called into the Sheriff's Office where what was reported is an abduction that occurred on the 15th, and a 34-year-old female resident of Oracle had reported to our detectives that she was abducted early morning hours from her residence, that she had went out to have a cigarette, a smoke on the porch, the patio, and what was reported to be 3 individuals had taken her from there and put her in the back of a pickup truck and took her out to some remote area in the desert, and reportedly had sexually assaulted and physically assaulted her as well. And a jogger in the early morning hours was jogging, had seen this young woman and had called 911, and that's when we all became involved, Oracle Fire and our detectives. From that situation, we're going to go into a little bit more detail of what all we have done at that particular point, what information we had. There's, of course, some of you have already mentioned to me, Sheriff, well, what about that video that the Oracle Inn had? You know, is there something on their surveillance? A couple people already mentioned that. So we have that video, and it may or may not be linked, you know, to that suspicious vehicle. We have information that the victim had given us with very specific information. We had appealed to the media for help in an effort to get the public involved, to say, hey, did anybody see anything? Have you heard anything? Because oftentimes criminals aren't as smart as we give them credit for, and they love to brag, they like to talk. More times than you think, we find out some good citizen calls us and says, hey, I know of this. Second incident, again, the very early morning hours, about 6 o'clock, thereabouts in the morning, another call came from the same female victim family, saying that there was a second attempted abduction when the female was taken out from the home. The door was slightly open. There's 2 dogs, very aggressive dogs from what I understand, in the backyard, and pulled her to the backyard, and there was a struggle and some type of an assault with a weapon, and then the assailants left. So that's the information we have. I have a couple people that I want to introduce you to as well. They're going to come forward and share what we have, and then we're going to be here to answer some questions. Keep in mind that there's a limit in terms of, oftentimes, as you may, some people watch things on CIS or some TV show, and they think that we have all the answers, and that there's all kinds of forensics and science that's going on, and there's some enhanced satellite that's going to show us who exactly the criminals are. That is not the case. That's not how good things just don't happen to us because we wear a badge and carry a gun. And that's why this is an investigation. We have investigators. Two of those are here. We have, first I'll introduce to you Captain Doug Brown, who's a 30-year veteran of law enforcement. He's the captain and head of all of our criminal investigators for the Sheriff's Office. He's right here with the jacket and the maroon colored shirt. To his left is a 35-year veteran in law enforcement, Lieutenant John Ellsworth. He's the lieutenant in charge. So from the Sheriff's Office and our resources, what we brought to bear immediately, because some people, I talked to one resident in town, and she shared, hey Sheriff, I think some of the people are just really worried, thinking that there's 2 or 3 masked men running around the town of Oracle ready to snatch somebody off of their porch nest. So we wanted to take all that thought away, that if anything, that this is a targeted assault, abduction situation. One, because of the exact same person, the exact same location. We have followed up on a number of the leads. We have other composites that in the future are being put together to ask for additional help. Not just these 2 men, but we have 8 detectives that are working this case right now. So if we have pulled other resources immediately from other serious cases from around the county. We have 420,000 people in the county. So all kinds of crime in various places. This is very important. That's why I'm here personally to say this is very important. I'm very aware of this particular case. Have been briefed daily by these 2 gentlemen. We have 8 detectives and 2 sergeants working this case most of the time, most of their time. So there's a lot of staffing hours that are going into it. We have 2 additional ID techs that gather, collect evidence in order for it to be tested, in order to be secured, DNA testing, forensic, from the forensic interview and investigation, all of that. Doesn't happen overnight. You just don't say, okay, here's a test and it equals this. This is a suspect. We have to send it to a crime lab. That takes time. We have none of that information back at this point. So that's some additional information that we have. John, Doug, do you want to come forward here for a minute? So that's where we have the 15th. Let me get in a little bit. There was some talk of, some video. And we have obtained this video from the Oracle Inn. They were kind enough to give us something that they thought could be the suspect. We don't know. A lot of people are saying a lot of things in town. We're following up on every lead, any information that's helpful. Another young lady just before this meeting said, Sheriff, if you could speak to the residents of the town, just to let us know that if somebody has information, they can contact you. Well, absolutely. You know, that should be a given, but I want to tell you that personally. If anybody in the town has information, or you think is a lead, something that we can follow up on, it's not just us. We can call upon other agencies to help us if there's somebody outside the area that we may wish to talk to. So, and that's where both John, Lieutenant Ellsworth, and Captain Brown are particularly working on. They've made certain that this is a priority. This is our priority here. This is probably the most significant incident from a law enforcement perspective that's happened in quite a while in the town of Oracle. So we get that. That's why it's not just our patrol deputies. Each and every one of them is aware, is vigilant about this issue. Lieutenant VR, I don't know if she's on her way. She's the lieutenant. She's the uniformed lieutenant. So there's a patrol response that are the 911 responders that are within the town. This is a beat by itself, meaning that there's always a uniformed patrol deputy. So you call 911, there'll be somebody within a reasonable period of time, depending on the seriousness of your call, would respond. Plus we have a deputy almost always in San Manuel, as well as down in the Saddlebrook area that can also respond to assist. So I want you to know that, one, from a safety perspective, we have the uniform response. Then in addition, the 8 detectives, 2 sergeants that are working following up on any information or leads that we would have that would hopefully result in identifying any particular suspects that would be involved in this crime. So with that information, and what I mentioned a little bit earlier when we started out, if you have concerns or questions, and you may hear back, well, we can't answer that at this time. That doesn't mean that we don't have information that could answer your question, we just can't reveal that. So I hope you understand and will respect that. If we say it, don't think that we're just putting up our hand saying, no, we're not going to tell you that, or we don't think you're, have the intelligence enough to comprehend. It's not about that. It's just about some information we have to safeguard for the investigation. So, concerns, questions that you may have, or if you have information that you want to share, it doesn't have to be publicly, you can do it privately as well. Yes, sir.
Frank Pearson. My property backs up to the house in question, and therefore we have many neighbors around who are in close proximity. And I'm wondering why we haven't been approached by the 8 detectives and inquired as to whether we saw or heard anything on these 2 separate occasions. It seems like that would be kind of police 101 that would have happened by now.
Captain Brown or Lieutenant Ellsworth?
They've been real busy following stuff down. It's real recent. We've had numerous bits and pieces of information come in, some of it from the family, some of it from the evidence that was on scene. If they haven't, they will be getting to you shortly.
Okay, because 18 days ago, it was the first incident, and then we had the same, a repeat in the same location. 18 days is a long time to wait to interview.
There's been a lot of stuff.
Well, I believe
Mr.
so.
Pearson, do you have information that would help us in this investigation? Is that what you're getting
I'm sure I can tell you
to?
what I know. Whether it helps you or not, I don't know. I'm not a law enforcement professional. But I think inquiring of the neighbors would be...
I will see that when our investigator speaks with you very shortly, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any indication that this crime originated in our community? Are we looking for our neighbors having committed this crime, or did this crime get transported out of Tucson or somewhere else? How fearful do we need to be?
From the evidence that we've collected so far, and what the crime scene show us, both from the 15th and the 30th, and additional scenes that were out in the desert area near Biosphere. That's just down the road, not far from, how far would that be from you and right there, Mr. Pearson? Yes,
Maybe 6 miles.
6 miles, so it's close proximity. We do not believe, we believe this is a targeted attack. We don't believe that there's somebody out there random trying to cause anybody harm that they come from. The evidence does not support that.
Thank you.
Do you have a profile of the person that you looking for that may have committed this crime?
Yes, it was in our national media release that we put out through the media asking for everybody's help. I don't have it handy with me.
There were 3, the initial report was that there were 3 males between the ages of 30 and 40, and that they were driving a black or a dark pickup truck. And so,
Lifted pickup truck, big tires on it, mud.
But do you have any, a profile of the actual person?
No, we're working on that, sir.
Right.
I'm working with Mason PD's forensic sketch artist for that, and that's supposed to take place tomorrow. We're hoping to be able to accomplish that.
some of the information, and this is where not being at the scene like yourself or us at the time of the incident, that a victim in recounting that, and I'm just speaking generally, specifically to this case, is saying, didn't get a good look at the faces initially, or could be general descriptions. And that's where, when putting out this information, and sometimes that information can be forthcoming, or working with, and this is not just this case, other cases, we have that sit down with a composite sketch, an artist that can try to go through, does this make sense, and to try to narrow down. Because understanding the trauma of an event like this and what it would do, that lots of times victims black out faces. And that sometimes we have seen over time that the recollection is better. Initially, we didn't have descriptions to specifically answer your question, so I'm trying to be a little bit more helpful to say, okay, what we had is 3 white guys, all right, and in a black truck. And so in the second incident, 2 assailants and possibly wearing some type of a mask. Yet this area of the face was seen so she could tell it was a white male.
I guess all I'm saying is there anything that we as a community can be on the lookout for or observe that might be helpful?
One, the fact that you're here, everybody in this town knows about this incident. Be very aware of your surroundings. Be very aware of who comes to your property, what's going on in the community. It's like what we always advise for safety at your own home. Yeah, keep your doors secure. Identify who's there when they come to your property, where you're going out visiting. This is a case, there were other people at the residence, and at least one, or if not both, of the attacks, and no other person was in question.
What are you saying?
No other person was assaulted. No other person was abducted.
Did the attackers know there were other people in the house? Do we know that? We don't know whether they were not assaulted because they didn't know it or because they just were aiming for those people.
We don't think the target was the other people in there.
Is this a domestic issue?
It depends on what you mean by domestic.
Well, I mean, between an ex-husband and a wife, or,
We don't have any information.
Oh, okay.
Leads us to believe that.
Is the victim all right?
What the victim went through, and it was very traumatic, and I'll just leave it at that.
Is she physically all right?
She's physically recovering, and that has led to a lot of her being able to help us with the investigation. Everybody here has heard about PTSD coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that. Our victims in these types of crimes also suffer from PTSD. And it takes a while to recover from that before they're able to fight back for themselves and to aid law enforcement in the investigation. So we've had to deal with that too. You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
There are a lot of us here in this town that walk along, and we're wondering, is it safe to walk around?
No, it's not. I'm the mother of the victim. And I'm going to speak out. You guys need to be in fear. You need to be in fear of these men. They're out to kill my daughter. They didn't succeed the first time, so they came to my house and abducted her from my back door. If it wasn't for my dogs would have not. They would have taken her and finished her off. Yes, you need to be in fear. Don't be by yourself. Don't let your children out there by yourself. No, I don't care what anybody says. I came home last night, and my back door, my dogs were at large. My neighbor told me that my dogs were running around. He said that one of my neighbors corralled them and put them in my backyard.
Do you mean somebody got them out? Somebody let them out?
Somebody let my dogs loose again.
What are the police doing to protect her daughter? Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but you know what? You guys need to be aware of your surroundings. Like they're telling you, be aware.
Could others be targeted?
From information we have at this point, we do not believe that. Yes, ma'am.
when I first read the information, I realized
That
the
they need to be
day before, I lived just a short ways away, I had seen a big black truck that I didn't recognize come up, turn around in this area where my corner is, and go out slowly. It was during the day, it wasn't at night, because I walk, like she said, every day.
Right.
And I can't be a witness to anything because I couldn't actually tell you what the truck looked like. But you speak about notice things,
Yes.
I kind of had something run up my spine when this truck went through because it wasn't behaving normally. And it's a possibility that if it's related, it was also there in the daytime, that's all I'm saying.
Would you be willing to speak to me after the meeting?
I know
I'd
nothing
like
more
to
than
get
that,
information.
but my point is that a lot of us do walk and notice these things. If we notice something, what do?
Call the sheriff's department.
Call what?
We had an 800 number, 1-800-352-3796. I'm sorry.
Write it on the, there's board behind you.
If there's something, go ahead and write it down. If there's something of an urgent matter that you believe that you need, the deputy needs to respond immediately, you call 911. Call 911 and a deputy will come and immediately respond to an issue. And this is where a lot of people can take this and everybody locks themselves in their house. Everybody doesn't go out alone. Now, you take whatever precautions that, one, you feel that are necessary, and clearly that if you're going to go out in the day, because it's the same thing in any rural community, would you go out after dark or before the sun rises by yourself? And some people do, and some people don't. These are personal choices. We always encourage people, especially given the circumstances today, be very aware of your surroundings, of your environment. You know, take the necessary precautions. Certainly our concern goes out not just to the victim, to the mother, to family members. We're not going to have a deputy at each house. There's a certain amount of resources. We're adding all kinds of resources specifically to this issue in the town in terms not just to make you feel safer, but to try to identify who these suspects are. And the victim is working with us as best she can at this time to support us, but we don't have these people identified at this point. So, given that, this is probably a quick summary of the most that we can give you about, yeah, absolutely be aware of your surroundings. We do not believe, we have no information that would support that anybody else would be targeted. And in fact, there's probably more evidence to believe that she's targeted specifically, right? And not any other individuals, any other females. This gentleman back here had his hand up for a while.
I have a clear recollection, but a few years back, there was a similar incident.
That's correct.
Okay. And just, I wonder if there was any connection, that might be something of benefit to look at. Because it was 3 men, it was a single woman who was abducted off the side of the road, taken in a vehicle, and held for a couple of days and sexually assaulted by three men.
That's absolutely correct.
Yes.
And that was maybe, Charlie, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I asked Larry, the chief, about that. He responded back to me that that had happened some time back, and they felt that this was possibly different.
About how long ago, sir?
I had to say,
About how long ago you're saying?
6 or 8 years ago?
well, I'm talking to the chief, the fire chief. He can tell you when.
Thank you.
It was 4 years.
It's about 4 years ago.
And it
No
happened
more
on
than
their
4
family.
years.
It was a single woman, it was very similar, she was abducted, held for, I believe, a couple days.
Louder,
I
Wes.
think it was unfounded, I think that,
Is that how it turned out?
I believe so, I believe so.
I'd like to step in, if I could, real quick. First of all, I admire the community, security in the community, just to see you all come out for this. I admire that. Your question goes to everybody. If you see anything that looks suspicious, gives you that hinky feeling, you know what I'm talking about, you should call us. We don't get mad when someone calls us. We'll go out and look at it. So I want to get that out of the way. I want you to listen to what we've said before about, we have evidence that it's a targeted victim. We'll go any further than that right now. There's, the sheriff hit on it, and I want to put it out there. This standard law enforcement protocol across the whole United States, when you do an active investigation like this, and you don't have a person that's in arrest right now, we can't put all that out. We're doing all sorts of stuff. We're talking to other law enforcement agencies. We're getting reports coming in. We're having briefings almost daily. We're having briefings with our detectives, with our command staff. We're letting the sheriff know about it. Press release went out. We're asking for your help. So this entire time, if you saw something, call us. We'll get somebody to talk to you. We'll see
Have you checked with the businesses to see if they have surveillance cameras? In specific, I'm thinking of the circle.
Yeah, we did a campus. And we did get some video. And that's gone off to the FBI. We haven't got the results back yet.
If I might add something, I think what you're all trying to say, everybody here, is that we need to be responsible for ourselves. Law enforcement agencies are primarily reactive. They react to issues that occur. If we aren't taking responsibility for ourselves, then we can't hardly expect to have a deputy on our back porch 24/7. I think the average response time to a 911 call is 8 minutes across the country. A lot can happen in 8 minutes.
Amen.
So we need, and like the mother of the victim is trying to tell you, you need to be aware of your surroundings, and that should be with everybody every day, constantly. We live in a dangerous world. It's probably not going to get any better for a while. So we need to be taking responsibility. Where I live, and my neighbors can attest to that, there isn't anything that goes on that I'm not aware of. Now, yeah, I have a little bit of background in this, but bottom line is each of us needs to develop that mentality so these kind of things don't go on. When I see a strange vehicle, I'm looking at it and making note of it. It's just part of my routine. And we can all be there. We can all do the same thing. We have to, otherwise we're going to be suffering at the hands of these monsters that walk our world.
Amen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, another thing is that this is a electronic world that we're in now, and a lot of people walk around listening or reading or doing their emails or texting or whatever they're doing. They have to walk and be alert and not be doing that while they're doing that, because then they can't be being aware of what's going on around them. And or listening to, if you're listening to music, fine, but keep an eye out and, be aware of where you are. And don't text while you're walking.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any other?
Exactly, yes. You need to tell them.
Is there any other information about the truck? Like, was it old or new? Anything like that?
It was a lifted pickup truck with big top, it was a lifted pickup truck with larger or knobby tires. And this is where one local business believed that they might have seen that vehicle at their business about 6 o'clock on the 14th, the evening before. There's video of that. It doesn't necessarily match up with the same description of the vehicle that was given by the victim. So even though some people may believe that, hey, that's a truck, we're not
We're
certain.
looking at every lead that comes, every single lead that comes to us, we're looking into that.
Go ahead, sir.
As Barbara said a while ago, it's a very electronic age and all the communication. One thing that I want to remind you that would help us when you want to get information out, if you're going to television, for example, we have Tucson back here right now, but only about half the homes in Oracle are allowed to receive Tucson. Everybody else gets Phoenix. It's one of those cases where we need both media markets to be informed, and then if they choose, they can inform us.
Sure. Good point. We reached out. It was covered, I believe, by numerous, not just TV, but by the local papers. We send it to everybody. Ma'am, you have.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for being here. I know this is very difficult. I appreciate you being here. I had heard that there was another incident in between the two assaults, and it had to do with the photograph.
Yes,
You validate that? And then,
I can't say anything else, but yes.
okay, so from the time that with this incident to the second assault, was the home being monitored by the sheriff department to watch, take care of the victim? If there was a second incident, because that means there were 3 incidents.
We actually, and Lieutenant Villar is here from our, she's a regional commander in the fourth area here. We actually had our patrol staff who reports to Commander Villar here, and she had deputies dedicated to drive by and keep an eye on the house.
So if there were 3 incidents, why wasn't that mentioned? Was it 3 or was it 2?
There were just 2. 2 incidents where the lady was assaulted.
But I understand there was something to do, and you said you cannot speak to it. There was something that occurred in between that was not considered an assault,
That's right.
but evidence.
I can't speak of it, I can't tell you anything. They know, but I can't tell you anything.
That's one of those things we cannot discuss. And when we say we can't discuss, it's not that we're trying to hide information from you. I wish this was a perfect world that we could tell you everything we know. But what we have to do when we get into court, once we ID these perpetrators, when we get into court, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And how are we going to be able to prove that unless they tell us exactly what they've done, with what evidence we have that we've held back from everybody, that may be published in the newspaper and that everybody's privy to it, so, you know, they read it in the newspaper. It doesn't work that way. So that's the reason why we don't want to discuss that particular issue, but there was only 2 assaults.
A couple people in the sheriff's office with a lot of experience said, do not do this meeting today, okay? So I'm saying that in an effort that this meeting is largely to tell you we're doing as much as we can with all the resources that we have to ensure that the investigation is getting the attention that it needs and to keep the residents of the town safe and to let you know that you randomly are not being targeted. That's what we're here to say today. So a lot of the questions are a little bit outside the bounds, and you probably have 10 other questions you'd like to ask. We can't answer.
You know, that is about the stupidest thing I've ever heard for 2 people to say within your department. Because why wouldn't you want a community looking out for these kinds of things?
Well, that's why we're here. That's why I decided.
Thank you very much for being here, Sheriff.
Absolutely. And above anything is to ensure that you're safe as a community. Bottom line. And that's how we started this whole meeting off. You're safe as a community, that we believe that this victim is specifically targeted.
But Sheriff, I am my sister's keeper. And my sister was assaulted, taken into the desert, raped, and left for dead. So the first, I can appreciate you talking about a target and that we are safe here and that we are not targets. The second time, when they went to the woman's home and took her, that clearly a target, but also they came to finish apparently what they had not succeeded in the first time. That does not, however, give me as a woman and as my sister's keeper any assurance that, and you guys all know, that men who are capable of doing this are hate-filled people and have no regard for women. So, as one of the neighbors, both of the victim and living in this community, if I'm out walking and these guys, whether they succeed in their job or not, I trust you and trust us that they will not, but there is no assurance for me that when I am out walking, day or night, if these guys are driving around pissed off, that they're not going to say, look, she's alone, she looks kind of small, bingo. You know what I mean? So I am not reassured by knowing or hearing that this person is targeted and everybody else is cool. We're all safe.
I don't think we said that at all. I think what we've tried to do is provide a comprehensive understanding of what evidence we have collected related to this crime, and made that available as much as we possibly can.
And I also want reassurance for everybody here that the victim and her family are in safekeeping and being watched over with every possible resource that
Lenita asked, the custody committee asked to be introduced. She's 30 years in law, your attorney.
Some of you know me. I am a member of this community. I have children here. I too am concerned. I wish that this meeting had been started with telling you if information is given as you're requesting and it turns out to have any relevancy whatsoever, it could harm the case. That's how, in my opinion, this meeting should have started. It didn't. So when it looks like you're being shielded from information, or it looks like the officers are not coming by your home to ask you certain questions, understand, if they tell you in this forum today that that is what they're doing, and defense attorney can prove up that they missed one house, the case is jeopardized. So there isn't much that can be told to you about the exact elements, information that they have. What they can do is reassure us that they are aware, that they know that we are concerned, and that they have our interests. I heard reference to the necessity to protect oneself. I don't know if that changes. I mean, we've always been there, not just oneself, but our community. But it frightens me to think that we're all going to grab guns and start, doing what we need to do because we think we need to protect ourselves. We need to use our eyes. We need to use our ears. We need to use our instincts. We know who we are. And we know who belong here. And some of you are looking at me like, well, I didn't know you. I have worked very hard in the last 8 years that I've been here to keep it that way.
Any other questions that you have that we can?
Sheriff, would block watch be any good?
Yeah, absolutely.
To start that?
This, in essence, is a large block watch for a specific issue. Clearly, the things to do is to be aware of who your neighbors are, and as much as you can share your schedule with your neighbors, as long as you trust them, share your schedule. Hey, I'm going to be out of town this weekend, right? Can you keep an extra eye on my house? And by the way, here's my cell phone number. If something goes on, or if you see somebody drive up my driveway. A lot of the comments that were given from some self-help, just from members of the community, is advisable. Be aware of your environment, your surroundings. If something is of an emergency nature, immediately call 911. Don't say, well, I think that's important and I'll write it down. Call us and say, hey, I know these people are out of town. Tell the call taker at our dispatch, I know these people are out of town, they're my neighbors, and there's a pickup truck and they're loading a TV in the back. And just don't confront, and this is what we ask you not to do, because some citizens go the extra step and they think they're going to go out there and be the pseudo cop for the day and try to stop people. And we don't want to see you do that. Be a good witness, get a description from head to toe. Physical features, height, weight, race, color, national origin, hair color, clothing description, the vehicle that they're driving, the color, the make, the model, and if you can get us a plate. Several of you have mentioned technology, telephones. Just about everybody has a phone. Take a picture. Take a picture and you save it. Take several pictures, right? Call us and that assists us. Others have said, always be aware of your surroundings. Take those precautions. I think everybody's safety concern is heightened at this point. That may be a healthy thing for just, and I understand that people are concerned, are afraid, and we're just trying to be aware. We're aware that you're concerned, that you're afraid, and we're charged to provide safety and protection, and we're trying to do that as best we can.
Well, since I've been here in the last 8 months, I've had 2 gentlemen towards evening come to the house. Now, the first one, no cards, not wearing anything, you know, but he was, I forget what he was trying to sell. The last one was trying to do installation of windows, you know, and I don't have security doors on. I mean, I do have a gun in the house and I know how to use it, but I still, these guys at night, I mean, coming at night towards evening is, I mean, I know they're not on the telephone anymore, but.
A no trespassing sign should hurt all,
Not
you
really.
know, legitimate.
Not really.
Well, I mean,
Hey, welcome to additional Lieutenant VR, Tammy VR. She's here quite often. Absolutely, if you want to start a neighborhood or a block watch in your neighborhood, and you want to host the first meeting, we'd be happy to come there and support that. And then give you updates with information and give you the information of what you need to do and to look for, so you're empowered for your own safety. Primarily, it's just like healthcare, everything. We can't have, as mentioned, we can't have a deputy in every neighborhood, but your eyes and ears, you know who belongs there, who is unfamiliar with the area. It doesn't mean that somebody who happens to come in your neighborhood is a criminal because they're not normally there. Just be aware of it. Take note of it, right? And if something's suspicious, take additional note of it. If something's alarming, call 911.
What are you doing to protect the victim? My fear is that before this case has been even brought to trial, she will be dead.
You want to answer that, Todd, first?
In addition to what she's saying, sir, I know that some things have happened at Trina's home that she may want to talk to you about after this is all over. But what could you do to protect her home, her car, her animals? She's fearing for her life too, because if they came there easily 2 times, and maybe 3, and maybe 4, and maybe they're watching her house, do you have the resources to protect her? Do you have a place where you could send her to be safe? What can you do to help her feel comfortable? Maybe her daughter's comfortable, but maybe she isn't.
There is information that we have discussed with the victim directly. And
To protect her, currently, now. Yes?
that's correct. Any other questions that we can be helpful with?
Well, just a question just to reinforce the eyes and ears of the community, because it does appear to us that the property's been under surveillance for a long time by the perpetrators, based on the timing, for example, the second incident that was on a shift change. And so being watchful.
The police
around
shift change.
The shift change of the deputies. So being watchful in terms of a smart criminal mind in terms of their activities relative to the protection of this home is an issue. The second question, I just comment on that, I think that's clear. I mentioned to one of the detectives face to face, I don't know if it's worked its way up the chain, that there was a likely location where the surveillance was coming from. I don't know if you've heard that or not.
No, this is the first I heard that.
Well,
Like you planted.
So, and then the same dad asked, one morning after this second incident, the dogs went crazy over there. If we call that number, then you get maybe a car, but that's not going to catch who's ever driving the dogs crazy.
Why don't you just dial a 911
So that kind of makes sure, I just want to make sure that when we're being queried by 911, that, it's not like somebody getting gets shot, but it is potentially part of a pattern of a home invasion and property invasion that is very consistent with the behavior of this.
I think part of it comes down to perception and what your perception of an emergency is. And I would say that based on the circumstances that we've been confronted with thus far, that would most certainly constitute an emergency.
And the dogs, you know, I mean, the dogs are the real hero of incident too. Because as I understand it, I mean, God bless them, because they were on guard and they took a piece out of these two guys. And basically probably saved the life of them.
Yes, sir.
Have 911 dispatchers, all of them on each shift, been advised that if they get a call from the Oracle area, that they will be aware of the fact that this pickup, et cetera, are the details that they have to handle immediately?
They're aware of the information that may be coming from the community. They're aware of the incidents that's happened. And they've been told to contact up to Phoenix and have detectives to notify all instantly of any new information.
No, the officers that came to my house today, they weren't aware of anything. And she asked them, she goes, don't you guys meet? Don't you guys get together? We work the day shift.
They actually called me right after, they actually called me while they were there, and I called them back. They are well aware of it. There's been, I personally have sent out numerous emails. Their sergeants have been briefed, and they've been briefed.
So some things that we don't want to do here, and that's where we're going to cut this to a close. We don't want to be in conflict with the victim or their families with information that's out, as well as the information that may be revealed. So I'm going to call this meeting to a close. We do appreciate the fact that you're here. Know that we take this seriously. We're going to follow up and have all the resources that we can bring to bear continued until we find a conclusion truly what happened here.
What do you think a reasonable time frame
I would
is?
like to say something, and well, it says certainly post it. If you're watching, and you are the ones that did this, I hope that one of you have a conscience, and that you contact and tell somebody, write it down, have a heart, and come forward. Stop this. My daughter is all I have. Please, I'm begging you, get a hold of that number. If you know anything, please call that number. Stop them. I don't want another female hurt. I want you guys off the streets. I do not want anybody else hurt. That's all I have to say.
What's a reasonable time frame for us to expect some progress?
Oh, I wish I could answer that.
I mean, law enforcement professionals, and what do you know right now?
I don't want to make it sound like I'm going out something. I've been here my 36 years. We follow the leads, so I can't tell you. Thank you both.
Thank you.